Horrible truth to suburban contractor John Gacy's rambling statements to police last week is becoming more and more evident with each passing day. 6 more bodies unearthed from the basement crawl space of Gacy's Norwood Park Township home today, bringing to 15 the number found there since Friday.
John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. Gacy was the second of 3 children, and the only son of John Stanley Gacy and Marion Elaine Robeson. His father, John, was a World War I veteran, and after returning from the war, became an auto mechanic and masked his trauma in alcohol. His mother, Marion, was a homemaker, and was known to be very submissive to her husband, often watching silently as he abused John Wayne regularly. Gacy struggled with a series of health issues, including a congenital heart condition, which limited his physical activities. In 1964, Gacy married Marilyn Myers and moved to Waterloo, Iowa, to manage his father-in-law's KFC franchises. He was active in the local community, including the Jaycees. Gacy's wife gave birth to a son, Michael, in February 1966, and his daughter, Christine, in March 1967. Gacy later described this period of his life as perfect. He had finally earned his father's approval. Gacy had started to build the perfect life for himself, but he was concealing a dark secret. He developed a disturbing sexual interest in young boys.
There was a son of a fellow JC member who he lured back to his home and he sexually assaulted. So he's abusing power. He's getting into these positions of trust and he's taking advantage, and that's a theme that's going to continue for him.
And then when the kid revealed this to his father and Gacy was arrested for it, Gacy hired another teenager to intimidate this kid, to lure this kid into some remote place and spray mace in his eyes and beat him up and warn him against testifying in Gacy's case.
Despite Gacy's efforts, his victim still testified, but there wasn't conclusive proof of an attack. Therefore, police were only able to charge him with sodomy of the 15-year-old boy.
He pleaded guilty to 1 count of sodomy, thinking he would get a very, very minimal sentence. But the judge threw the book at him, and he was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
On September 18th, 1969, Marilyn was given full custody of Michael and Christine Gacy. Regardless of the fact that Marilyn filed for divorce, claiming cruel and inhuman treatment, Marilyn stated that she had issues accepting that John was homosexual, but that he'd been a decent parent. He had never been abusive with her or the children. Gacy never saw his wife or his children again. After his release, Gacy remarried and moved to the Norwood Park neighborhood in Chicago. He became known for his involvement in local community events, often dressing as Pogo the Clown to entertain children at parties and hospitals. In December of 1978, after the disappearance of 15-year-old Robert Piest of Des Plaines, Iowa, who was last seen with Gacy, police took an interest in Gacy and decided to question him about the young boy. It was at this time a web of lies and murder untangled, and the history of a serial killer was discovered.
Des Plaines and Cook County Sheriff's Police investigators arrived first thing this morning to resume their search. The big white wagon, which has been used to transport bodies from the northwest suburb to the morgue, Fishbein Institute, pulled up early today and stood waiting outside the house while more digging went on inside. Also on the scene, crowds of onlookers, the curious, many of whom have stood the death watch for days. By late today, just about all the hollow spaces in the house had been opened up for the searchers. Floorboards and ceiling panels pried loose and carted out to the huge bin just outside the front door.
Gacy lured his victims, most of whom were young males, often teenage runaways or boys from troubled backgrounds, into his home with promises of work or money. He would then assault, torture, and kill them, often using a rope trick to strangle them. He was eventually convicted of murdering 33 young men and boys between 1972 and 1978. He buried 26 of his victims in the crawl space of his home, 3 others elsewhere on his property, and disposed of the remaining bodies in the Des Plaines River. Gacy's trial began on February 6, 1980. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the jury rejected this defense. On March 13, 1980, Gacy was found guilty of 33 murders and was sentenced to death. Gacy spent 14 years on death row at Menard Correctional Center in Illinois and was executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994, at Stateville Correctional Center in Crest Hill, Illinois.
In the United States, a day of last-minute appeals failed to stop the execution of America's most notorious mass murderer. John Wayne Gacy killed 33 boys and young men during the late 70s and buried them under his Chicago home. As Ken Burslem reports, at 3:01 Australian time, Gacy finally paid the ultimate price.
John Wayne Gacy became one of America's most notorious serial killers. His alter ego, Pogo the Clown, added a particularly chilling element to his crimes, blending the innocence of a clown with the horror of his actions. His story has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films. He has also influenced popular culture, inspiring characters in movies and television shows. None seem more obvious than the 1986 release of Stephen King's miniseries about a psychotic clown named Pennywise in the television compilation and book titled It.
Aren't you going to say hello?
The result of Gacy and his crimes transformed what was once a symbol of joy and innocence into one associated with terror. The revelation that a clown could commit such heinous crimes instilled fear and distrust in clowns. While clowns remained a staple in circuses and children's entertainment, there was a noticeable decline in their popularity at birthday parties and local events. Parents became more cautious about hiring clowns for private functions. Clowns became a popular trope in horror films and television shows. Despite efforts to rehabilitate the image of clowns, the legacy of Gacy and the proliferation of scary clown imagery in media present ongoing challenges. The 2016 clown sightings phenomenon, where people dressed as creepy clowns were reported to be lurking and sometimes behaving threateningly, further complicated public perceptions. While John Wayne Gacy's crimes dealt a significant blow to the public image of clowns, the culture has adapted and evolved. Efforts by professional clowns and positive portrayals in media continue to work against the negative associations, striving to restore the original spirit of clowning as a source of entertainment and joy. But the negative impact on the generations since these gruesome murders has forever tainted the once positive perceptions of clowns and left a scar that may never be healed.